Hi everyone, last Epoch has just released the biggest bomb of a patch that I've ever seen. It's absolutely incredible and I want to share the excitement with you guys. So as you may know, last Epoch came out like last year, then they had their Season 1 launch, and since then they've kind of been hibernating for the last 9 months. But boy have they been cooking. And not only that, they actually had a bunch of podcasts and interviews and this kind of stuff. For example, this one here yesterday, where the devs sit down with some content creators. Wasn't me this time around, but they also share a lot of their insights. So I recommend you guys to check this out because there's a lot of cool behind the scenes knowledge. And if you were really excited to prepare, then this has a lot of goodies there. But let's talk about the patch notes. Man, this is a big thing. So this is like the biggest patch notes I've ever seen for any game, really. This is like expansion level update, basically. But this all comes for free if you already own the game. And it's just like the new season release, basically, for them. But you see here, when you scroll down, it just goes on and on and on. There's a ton of updates for the crafting systems, especially, which is frankly already the best in the entire genre. So especially if you're playing a lot of PoE2 right now, like I do and many others, well, the crafting is basically non-existent, and Last Epoch does everything right when it comes to crafting. It's absolutely incredible, and they're just making it even better. So I think all of the stuff they're bringing is amazing. I'm going to give you a brief overview in a second. But yeah, as you can see here, this update is ridiculous. They've changed basically every class and the skill and tons of other stuff. They brought new enemies, new bosses and zones. They overhauled the endgame system. And yeah, it just keeps going and going and going, as you can see here. So absolutely incredible. I went through those patch notes for like 5 hours last night and I'm still not done, not even close to that, so I have to continue that later today. But just to give you like kind of like the overview, first of all, there's also this Last Epoch Season 2 patch overview made by the developers themselves, which is also 20 minutes overview basically, so you might want to go check that out. But well, what you need to know about some of the new stuff that is coming. Some of the highlights are a huge Sentinel rework. One of the 5 classes is getting like a whole overhaul basically. So this includes 3 different masteries: the Paladin, the Void Knight, and the Forge Guard. All of those are massively changed. Then like all of the abilities, of course, there's a lot of stuff that got into that. Some other interesting updates are WSD support. So they said this is experimental right now, but they did show this off and it looks like at least usable. So I'm quite excited to see WSD coming myself. Then we also have lots of updates for the endgame system. So if you have played Last Epoch before, then you know that it has like this echo system with the monoliths, and it's basically kind of like this web of nodes that are connected. And it was always a little bit like bland and very shallow in terms of like repetitiveness. And now this has really been broken up a little bit, and now you have these so-called woven echoes, where you have like special echoes that you can actually find like as an item, and then you can put them into the map basically, and then can run those. So you have a lot more flexibility, a lot more customization in terms of like what type of echoes you run, what you get from them, because a lot of them have like a special purpose, like there's a special boss that drops a certain item, or there's like a special crafting feature behind that boss or something like that. So lots of cool stuff, and I'm also really excited. I think this is like one of the big things that the game really needed. So this is what we have here right at the top of the patch notes, actually, in the tombs and the cemeteries. So tombs are kind of like little side zones that you can find inside the regular echo, and then the cemeteries, the way I understand it, are these echoes that you put directly into the map. So this is what it looks like. This is like the web of echoes, and usually you kind of like run this one, then you choose this one, and you go on and on and on, and then you fight the boss at the end or something. And now you can make new paths. You can add like extra echoes in the middle, and you can go different ways, and they have like special rewards and so on. So there's lots of really cool stuff. They say there are 36 different types of woven echoes. So they all have something special about them, and also they are now procedurally generated, where previously all of the maps were just like kind of fixed formats and the fixed like environments, including the campaign. They now have the technology to actually make procedurally generated maps, which is also a huge step for an ARPG, because usually you want to have these like randomized maps and stuff like that. And this is also another thing that led to this whole feeling of repetitiveness in the past with running normal echoes, because the layouts were basically always the same. So you very often just kind of like did the same run. Okay, maybe you spawn in a different corner and then you go to a different side of the map or something. But overall, that was definitely a problem. So that might also get a lot better now. Obviously, with these new weapon echoes come a lot new monsters and monster types. They've also introduced so-called champions. which are effectively more beefed up rare monsters. They also have like special names and abilities, and they can also drop special new champion items. So items with certain affixes that only come from those guys. So there's something cool like that. And that's going to be pretty exciting to find out. There's apparently 20 of those. Together with the Woven also comes the Woven faction, which is like a progression bar. So there are certain factions in the game that are basically like a reputation system. There is the choice that you have to make between trading and sort of self-found faction, which is the Merchants Guild and the Circle of Fortune, and all the other factions are given to everyone. So you have this Weaver tree, you have also the previous one from the Harbinger patch from Season 1, and now we also have this. And the cool part is that with this Woven faction comes the Weaver tree. So that's what this looks like, which is effectively like a passive tree. It's similar to the Atlas passive tree from PoE or so. You can customize the echoes, you can choose certain rewards, you can choose to run certain echoes more often, or even like block certain echoes entirely, get certain item rewards from certain enemies. So you can actually like really customize the experience, and this is also a huge deal here. Apparently there's over 70 nodes here on this tree, and you get 50 points in total to spend on this. So you have a lot of freedom here to customize your experience, and I think it's going to be really fun to play around with this. So they have like some of these examples here of what this includes. So you can kind of see like, you know, there's like a chance to maybe have certain monsters appear more, remove certain echoes, and all that kind of stuff. So you can really like, you know, change this endgame to your liking. Next, we have the crafting updates, which are also incredible. So there is a lot of new stuff coming. Last Epoch already had an insane crafting system with just the right mix of deterministic crafting versus RNG, and it just feels good to make items in this game. So this is really like the strongest advantage of Last Epoch, and it's just getting better. So now there's also idle enchanting. You can now add extra stats to those idols, and you can also re-enchant them if you don't like them. So that is really cool stuff. Then you have set reforging. You can now break down set items into affix shards and craft those set affixes onto normal items, which then become so-called reforged set items. And this allows you to use any like exalted item or rare, I think even, to actually replace one of those set pieces. So you don't have to wear the, you know, really low level outdated actual set item. You can actually just choose to craft one of the stats from the set on an item, and this will then count as part of the set. So what this means is that now you can actually choose to run certain set bonuses in your build, as long as you don't have to occupy that slot with unique or legendary, and you can actually get you know, lots of really crazy effects and build around certain effects of those. There are some set bonuses in the game that are pretty potent. I don't really know them all by heart right now because I usually kind of just ignored them, but some of them are pretty good. And this might also be like yet another avenue to like improve your character and customize it. So this is really cool, and also opens up a lot of new possibilities for builds. Another cool thing is legendary potential rerolling. So this is also like one of those woven echoes that you can do, where you get these forge here, where you can basically put in any kind of like legendaries, and then it either upgrades the legendary potential to a higher value or resets it back to 0. So especially if you find these like random 1 LP uniques that you kind of don't care about, or you want to try to improve, especially like these, like those that are relatively easy to get with high legendary potential, you can put them in there, and then you can either get more or you get down to 0. And if you go down to 0, then you can continue again with the Nemesis system, where you can stick them into the egg, and they have a chance to upgrade into a legendary or into a unique that has more LP again. Here's another cool feature called unique, legendary, and set affix rerolling. So previously you didn't have any crafting potential on those items, and you still don't, but you can now still reroll the stats on them. So if you find one that has like a really high range of a roll and it rolls really terribly, then you can stick it in there, and with a copy of the item that has at least the same quality, you can then reroll the affixes to try to get a better roll out of the one that you're currently using. So you can use those extra copies and put them in there. And there's also another way to like slowly improve your character a little bit with better rolls, for example, which is also pretty cool, I think. Also, there's a swap attribute feature coming, another woven echo that you can run, where you can swap between any of the 4 main stats that the different classes have: attunement, strength, int, and dex. You can just freely go back and forth kind of at no cost almost. It just is 1 forging potential, which is like nothing. So as long as the item is not fully done, you can do this. And it's also going to be pretty huge in order to improve the breadth of items that you can actually potentially make into something usable. And experimental item crafting is also changing. So the previous like system with like the exiled mages dropping these items and then dropping these like glyphs of experimentation or something, or rune of research, like this stuff is gone. Now it's also a Woven Echo, and you just go there and your selection item has all these 2 prefixes and choose the experimental stat that you want. And then it has like a chance to roll higher tiers, I think, depending on the tiers on the item and stuff like that. But it was a very convoluted and weird system before, which is now much simpler and much more consistent. So that's also really cool. And these are also some special item stats that you can get on just specific slots. So I think this is like gloves, boots, and belt only. And these are very specific stats that are pretty niche and previously versus like kind of like real random all over the place. So it's nice that they're consolidating this. There's also 3 new runes for crafting, which are really cool. The biggest one here is the Rune of Havoc. So what this does is that it shuffles the tiers of the stats on an item. So if you have like, you know, an item that has like a tier 2 and a tier 7 and a tier 3 mod, and this is like, you know, A2, B7, C3, for example. Well, if you use the rune, then this will be shuffled, and you know, maybe A becomes the 7 and B becomes the 2 and C stays the 3 or something like that. So this means that you can now find items where you have an exalted stat that you usually can't really change or anything, but you can try to, you know, convert that into a low tier stat and then change it or seal it away, while maybe making a stat that you really want that is on the item into the tier 7 instead. So this is really cool. I think this is gonna really open up a lot of like crazy flexible crafting options. So especially with the right loot filter, you can like hunt for these kind of items where you have the right stuff, but not really in the right tier distribution. And it's going to be really fun, I think, to use this. So this is a huge thing. Next, we have the Rune of Redemption. So this allows you to find items with exalted stats that are the wrong stats and then just randomly change them into other exalted items. So this is also really cool. So you can also specifically look for those items that you don't actually ever would want. Where previously the only option was really to maybe use a Rune of Removal, but then, you know, you get rid of the exalted stat and the item is not really worth anything anymore anyway. Now you can actually pick up those items and then try this rune and see if you can get a stat that you actually care about. So that's really nice. And there's also Rune of Weaving, which is basically just a fast forward for Weaver's Will or Weaver's Touch, which is basically the same thing. So this is like for items that have this kind of effect where you would have to equip the item and then go kill enemies a bunch, and then they kind of like level up and they consume the Weaver's Will to get a random stat. And instead of like equipping the item and going around and killing stuff, now you just use the rune and you can fast forward this process. So you don't lose anything there on the way. It just kind of finishes the item for you, basically. And another huge thing that's coming is the Eternity Cache. So this is when you make legendaries in the Temporal Sanctum dungeon, where you take the legendary potential unique and then an exalted item. You'll now be able to choose one guaranteed stat. So this is like a really huge thing, especially for the big ticket items that usually only have like maybe one legendary potential or so on the higher end. Like some items are so rare that you just don't really find them with more than 1 LP anyway. So now you can actually go there with your guaranteed tier 7 mod outcome and put it on the item. And not only that, but you can also have a chance for a critical success. Apparently a very low chance, but this means that you can get more random items than it otherwise says. So if you have a 1 LP item and you get a critical success, maybe you get the one that you chose, and you get another random stat from the item as well. So it kind of just upgrades it to 2 LP, for example. So this is also huge, and I think it's going to be incredible for especially making your own gear in SSF. So that was it here for the big overview of the new features coming in Season 2. I gotta say, I'm pumped for this. I'm going to be blasting. There's also the hardcore solo self-found race for Uber Aberov, which is like an incredibly high challenge apparently. So obviously I'm going to be logging in. I'm going to be trying to get that. Scissoran has just announced a race event with prices of $10,000 for the first 5 people, and not each. The number 1 is 5,000 and then it goes down. But I definitely want to try to be up there at the top. Not so much for the money, but that will be a nice addition. It's just that I really like those races. I've already done the first Aberov race, and I was second to take the Aberov down on hardcore solo self-found last time. I was the first to try and the second to kill him. So there was that. And that was really cool, and I'm looking forward to doing something like that again this time. So I'm going to be blasting, and let's see how this will go. Other than that, you can also expect some more updates from me here. Like I'll be going through the patch notes more and talking more about the changes. There's a lot of class changes in there. There's also the Marksman with Heartseeker that is probably a really popular build that I might be playing myself. And in addition to that, we also have the Maxwell updates up already as well. So the Maxwell boys who have been playing the closed beta tests and stuff, they have already released their updates here, so I can show that real quick. But yeah, basically all of the guides are out, so go check this out. Show them some love here for the team. So these are the guys behind the Last Epoch page here on Maxwell, and they're obviously all going to be blasting, and they really know their stuff. And I'll also have a podcast with some of them on Sunday evening in the EU and like afternoon or so NA time. So stay tuned for that. And you can also see this on my YouTube later on, I guess on Monday or so. Either way, lots of news, lots of new stuff to dive into. And now we have a few days left to prepare. So I'll probably be playing some Last Epoch on my stream as well to try to get ready. I've already done a bit of prep like some weeks ago. Did like an Abaroth run and so on. So just kind of to get unrusted a little bit, and now is the time to like jump in. If you don't have the game yet, I really recommend you guys to check it out and get it. I think it costs $35 right now. I'm not sure if they're gonna have a sale, but they may have. And otherwise, I also have my Nexus store link down in the description that you can go check out if you don't want to buy the game and want to support me. It costs the same, but I get like a little like extra basically if you use my link. So you can find that in the description. Obviously, there's also going to be Twitch drops, and there's going to be lots of other stuff going on. I think there's going to be a huge launch here for Last Epoch in Season 2. This comes out on the 17th of April. So we're going to be blasting basically all the way to the end of the month at least or something. And then, yeah, we're gonna see what is continuous after that. I'll also have a few links here to some of the Maxwell articles because they've already been updated with lots of the new info. So go check that out if you want to read up on more of this. As I mentioned, stay tuned for more videos as well. I'm gonna be pumping out some. And otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next one.